So I opened up my church email this week, and I saw a little thing that said Kevin Dawson is going to present a powerful story. And I immediately proceeded to do some magical thinking because I had to assume that was a typo. But anyway, about 200 years ago, there was a man named Joseph Smith in the eastern part of the U.S., and he was a self-proclaimed prophet, and a number of people gravitated towards him, and a collection of immigrants and displaced peoples and so on and so forth. And one of those people came from Germany, the first German member of that congregation, and he taught Joseph Smith how to speak German. And that man was my great-great-grandfather. And so I am a fifth-generation member of that congregation, or was. And I graduated in 1980 from Brigham Young University. I served a 2-year mission in France and Belgium, and got married and set about to start my life in what I like to refer to as a spiritually gated community. And as the years went by, it became apparent that following a set of rules made for you by someone else, and not necessarily in direct conjunction with what God is wanting for you, basically the recipe doesn't work. And my life hasn't worked very well as I tried to follow that recipe. So I began to try to figure this out. Why wasn't it working? And one of the things that I looked at was the Ten Commandments, where one of them says that you should not take the name of the Lord, thy God, in vain. And most people refer to look at this and think that refers to profanity. My feeling has always been, though, that this means telling someone that you're following God when your real motivation is your own vanity or pride. And this is where a lot of it's a very good way to distinguish a false prophet from a real prophet. And what we're talking about recently in our sermons has been the idea of prophecy. And people like to think of it as something where you predict the future. But prophecy is also an inspired utterance. And it becomes important for us to not, or to distinguish what is an inspired utterance and what isn't. And so we have to, it is our responsibility to know who false prophets are and who they aren't. And as I began to read more and more in the Bible and look at it more closely in terms of what it was, it became very apparent to me that in the New Testament in particular, Christ speaks almost always about people's hearts and not about following certain sets of rules. And that is the hearts that are the key to happiness and the key to following Christ. This is from Oswald Chambers. I'm sure many of you read some of his works. Anyway, the greatest competitor of true devotion to Jesus is the service we do for him. It's easier to serve him than to pour out our lives for him. And so I found that what I was in a religion or a gospel that wasn't really the gospel. It was a gospel of diversion, where the busier you are, the less your heart is able to do something. And eventually this creates a stranglehold for the heart, and you just become tuned into the rules. So as I stepped out of one congregation, I didn't necessarily step right into another one. There was a time of drifting and basically spiraling downhill in a spiritual sense, a gradual decline of my family, and this all culminated in my being challenged to seek God, and I eventually joined a nearby congregation that was a Baptist congregation. There I started to learn about Christ more, to become more attuned to the Bible, and was baptized in a big, beautiful Missouri stream one day, and then I moved to Colorado and was looking at where I needed to go to continue my searches. And when I first moved here, someone, well-meaning I think, said that in order for my business to grow, I needed to join a particular large congregation in the South Metro area, and it occurred to me that wasn't really a very good reason to join a church, was to improve my business standing. And so even though he might have been well-meaning, I chose not to go that route. I have attended many congregations in the Littleton area, and am impressed by being in this congregation, which to me represents what I call a community church. And I feel like I am encouraged by all of you in my conversations with you, and in the services that we have, that we are encouraged to think. We are not told what to think. And I think this is an important part of seeking Christ. Because if all we do is follow what someone else tells us to do, we really aren't growing in Christ. And if you look at the parable of the talents, that's what happens if you just go bury your talents and ride on someone else's coattails. And I know this journey will continue, and I don't know where it's going to lead me, but I'm happy to be on it and enjoying it.